Yo guys, what's going on? Blossom's back and welcome back to another episode of Top Drives. We're back with everybody's favorite series where we're going to continue where we left off with part 2 of the top 3 best and the top 3 worst epics in the game. Today we're going to go from RQ 73 and beyond all the way to I think 85, and I'm going to be telling you what are indeed the top 3 best epics and the top 3 worst epics in my opinion. So let's get into the video. Now, before we get started, be sure to check out my Patreon page. Becoming a patron will support me and my channel immensely, considering YouTube pays me $4 per video on average. Different tiers will grant you different perks, of which includes live streams for my pack openings and after hours, access to my exclusive Discord, garage reviews, end credits, and more. All the info is listed on my Patreon page, and it would genuinely mean the world to me if you checked it out. Now, on to the video. Oh, and also I raised the cap for demon tier. It used to be only 10. Well, now there's 15. There can be 15. So if anyone's interested. All right, guys. So before we start, I got a question for all of y'all. Let me know down in the comments below what your favorite epic in the game is. I know that's a pretty hard question because even for me, I have multiple epics that are my favorites. But hey, if you had to choose one, what is your favorite epic? Comment down below. And of course, before we start, a slight little disclaimer. Unlike all the ultra rares, all the ranks, that I've done before in this series, like ultra rares, super rares, and rares, for epics I haven't had the privilege to own at least half of them, so take my information with a grain of salt. Obviously I will try my best to give you the best information possible. Obviously if I don't own an epic, I probably know people that own that said epic that I'm talking about in this video, and I've heard very good things about it. But like I said, everyone is entitled to their own opinions. This is my opinion on what I think are the best top 3 per RQ and the worst bottom 3 per RQ. But anyway, let's get into it, starting this off with RQ 73. So in the top 3 list for my RQ 73s, we're going to kick things off with the Jaguar XJ13. This thing is, well, you know, it's kind of like a Swiss Army knife. It kind of has it all. First of all, it has the definition of niche when it comes to years. It's a 60s car, okay? One of the best 60s cars in the game. It has an incredibly high top speed of 200, low 0 to 60. I mean, that is the same 0 to 60 as a Hellcat. And the handling isn't bad either. You'd think that if it's a drag car, it would have really bad handling, but to be honest, 85 isn't too bad for a car of its stature from its time. On top of all that, it also has the motorsport tag, the style icon tag, and the ultra expensive tag. And the motorsport tag and the style icon tag are some pretty popular tags that Hudge uses from time to time, unlike Wild Ride or Driver's Choice. We never see those anymore, but motorsport and style icon, they pop on, and the style icon, they show up in clubs as well. So it's a fantastic car. Not to mention that this is also a lightweight car weighing under 1,000 kgs. Now, what makes the Jaguar XJ13 less desirable to some people is that it has no MRA. That being said though, with competent handling and a low 0 to 60, this is a good quick burst car. So a car that is going to be great for the hairpin or the fast circuit or the quarter mile. It will be competent on the half mile, but you probably don't want to put it on a 1 mile or a test bowl. Think about it this way. The Jaguar XJ13 is a D-type on steroids with even more niches because of its year and because of its performance and because of the tags that it also has. Anyway, moving on from the Jaguar XJ13, the next two that are in my top 3 for RQ73 will go to the Jaguar XJR 575. The main reason for the XJR 575 is its niche. All right, if you are going to filter by epic, filter performance tire, medium ground clearance, rear wheel drive, that's the second best. I know I've talked about how Lancer Evos are kind of like the cars you want to use, but like I said, in its niche, you got to take away that 4-wheel drive. If you take away the 4-wheel drive, you're taking away all the Lancers, and all the bad cars that I said are going to lose to the Lancers, like the Audis, the so forths, and the Volvos and everything. The Jaguar XJR 575 has that niche. It has rear rear-wheel drive performance tires, medium ground clearance. It has a low 0 to 60 for its niche, and the handling is somewhat okay. It's not the strongest, but with that high top speed and respectable MRA, this makes it a very versatile car. Unfortunately, I think it's going to go low in the future, but for now, it is in my list for one of the best RQ73s in the game. Last but not least is the Peugeot 407 Silhouette. It has the same stats as the Campaign Camaro 4087, but why I chose the Silhouette is not only have I heard many good things about it, and like I said, I've never owned this car before, but I know a lot of people that have, and I know a lot of people have said a lot of good things about the Silhouette. What makes it special is I think not only does it carry the same stats as the Z28, it's also significantly lighter by almost a ton, because the Z28 weighs about 1,800 kgs. This one is 950, which means that this is going to be the better car for the twisties. Of course, the Z28 has better MRA, but only by 3. The Z28 has about 83, whereas the 407 has about 80. And to be fair, 80 isn't bad either. So this seems to be the car that has it all. It also has that concept tag, which is kind of like garnished towards a nice dish. All right, so let's talk about the bottom 3 73s in my opinion. The first one is going to go to the Peugeot SR1. The main reason why the Peugeot SR1 is so weak is because it's a worse version of what is already a very weak epic, which is the Audi TTS Coupe. Although it has a higher top speed, it's not like it has jaw-dropping MRA. And like I said, you know, it doesn't have a strong 0 to 60, it doesn't have strong handling, it doesn't really have a strong MRA, it's just good for nothing, really. That's what the SR1 is. Next up on the list is going to be the roof R compressor. How far this car has fallen. It used to be one of the best epics in the game, and now I think is absolutely atrocious, because the one thing that the roof R compressor was known for was taken away from it. It used to have over 100 MRA. Remember that? Back then, that was elite, but now it only has a whimsical, like what, 82 MRA, something like that. And because of that, also with the weak 0 to 60 and the semi-competent handling, it just makes it a bit of an all-rounder that just misses the mark everywhere. So the roof R compressor, unfortunate, sad story about that. I mean, how far it has fallen. Then the last car that I want to talk about that's on the bottom of my list for RQ73 is the Volvo S60 T8 all-wheel drive. 4-wheel drive, medium ground clearance, performance tire, you know what I'm about to say. The Mitsubishi Lancers, I'm gonna take it to Gapplebee's. Alright, so let's move on to RQ74. Now, my top 3 RQ74 are as follows. The first one is going to go to a car that has been on my wish list since the dawn of, well, not time, but the update. And that is the Ford F-150 Raptor, also Call of the Wild American Frontier. This is one of the best non-prize 4-wheel drive off-roaders you can get, and it is the best non-prize 4-wheel drive off-road high ground clearance that is in the game. Low 0 to 60, decent handling. It's just a fantastic beast. Next up on the list is going to go to the Mercedes CLK DTM. This thing is a dark horse in my eyes, because I did not expect this to be a Hellcat killer until I owned it, and then it opened my eyes. This thing kills Hellcats, not the Charger, but it beats the Challengers, and it beats the Juice. This thing is ridiculous. Not only does it have a very respectable 0 to 60 of 3.8, it also has an MRA of very close to 100. I think it's 99 point something. Absolutely insane. And not only that, along with that MRA, it has a very high top speed of 186. It's also a convertible, and it has the motorsport tag. Fantastic beast, this Mercedes-AMG CLK DTM. Long name though. And last but not least, I'm going to give it to a car that I've never owned before. I mean, the Raptor I've also never owned before, and that is going to be the KTM Expo, which I don't know where it is. Where is it? Oh, here it is, the KTM Expo GT. Simple. It has the highest handling amongst the other RQ74s. 0 to 60 is not the best that we've seen, but because of that handling and because of how light it weighs, makes it a very competent twisty car, especially against its competition in the RQ74 range. Now, let's talk about the worst RQ74s in my opinion. The first one is going to be no surprise, is the Volkswagen Golf R. Same reason, it's going to get sent to hell by the Mitsubishi Lancers. Not to mention the MRA on this thing, 69 MRA. So this is a car where you look at it and the stats are so underwhelming, you're thinking, oh, maybe it has good MRA, maybe that's why it's RQ74. But then you find out it's 69, then you say nice, and then you find out, oh wait, that's actually not very good. And that's what this car is. It's just not very good. The next one on the list is going to go to the Maserati Levante S. It handles, it's just very, very weak in handling. It's also a very heavy car, and it has no MRA. It has comical handling and 68 MRA. 68 MRA just isn't good enough. But yes, after the Levante S, the last thing that I want to talk about for my bottom of RQ74 is going to go to the Bentley Flying Spur. So where is the Bentley Flying Spur? I mean, this one is like, it needs no introduction in all the wrong ways. Everybody knows why this is on the list. It's heavy and it doesn't handle, and although it has a high top speed, it doesn't have the MRA to back it up. That's just Bentley in a nutshell. Anyway, let's move on to RQ75. So here are my top 3 RQ75. Now RQ75, I have to say, is a bit of a holy grail of an RQ. There are so many amazing cars in here, it's like specialist town, because you have the Lotus 211 Supercharged, you have the I-Pace, the Numero 9, the Donkavort, you have the Caterham JPE, but alas, there are so many amazing cars in RQ75, I'm still going to pick a top 3. So I think that this is going to be the most controversial RQ, so let me know down in the comments below if I got it absolutely bang on, or there are going to be some cars that you want to replace for RQ75. So first of all, I'm going to talk about my first nominee, and that is the Donkavort D8 270 RS. The main reason why I chose the Donkey is because of that sub 3 second 0 to 60 when you max it out 233. It beats the 211 on all the twisty tracks, and it also beats the JPE on all twisty tracks. I think the only track that the Donkavort D8 loses to the 211 is the G-Force, and that is mainly because the 211 has 100 and the Donkavort has 98. Not to mention that this is lighter than the Lotus 211, weighing at 630 kgs. That's not to say that the 211 is heavy. It's still incredibly light at 745, but you see what I mean? The Donkavort just is a little lighter, the 0 to 60 is just a little lower, and it really is the better car. Considering I do own this, I can guarantee that it does beat the 211 on the majority of the track sets, and the 211 beats the JPE on the majority of the track sets. So yeah, the Donkavort takes top dog in my books. Now next up on the list is going to go to the Spyker C8 Spider. This thing, it puts fear into my eyes. I'm afraid to put legendaries against the C8 when it comes to a drag scenario, because even then I don't feel confident that my legendaries are going to be able to beat the Spyker C8. We just talked about the Mercedes CLK DTM. Well, let's one up that. Put that CLK DTM, which is already a fantastic car, on literal Adderall, because the Spyker C8 is even better, okay? Higher top speed and a slightly better MRA. The MRA on this bad boy is 103, and it puts the fears into my legendaries. Like, this thing is ridiculous. You see this thing on a drag, you run away. This thing is scary. And last but not least, the most controversial pick of it all, I am giving it to the Jaguar I-Pace. Why I say it's controversial is because the DS Numero 9 exists. This is a fantastic car. It's an honorable mention, and I have to say, so many honorable mentions to RQ75. DS Numero 9, Dodge M4S, Lotus 211, even the Peking to Paris has its niches, so they're all really fantastic cars, but I'm gonna give it to the I-Pace. And why is because I'm going to show you this image right here. As you can see, they're kind of in a dead heat. The I-Pace wins some and the DS Numero 9 wins some, but the main reason why I went for the I-Pace is because it has that SUV niche, it has that GE 5-seater niche that we see all the time in the game, and most importantly, it has more second place finishes compared to the DS numero 9. At least I think it does. Maybe I counted it wrong. I wouldn't put it past myself if I counted it wrong. Anyway, let's move on to the bottom of RQ75s. Now, picking the bottom of RQ75s were pretty hard because, like I said, I mean, there are a lot of good cars in here, so it's really hard to find the worst ones. But there are. My bottom list for RQ75s is going to go to the Donkavort D8 GT. Donkavort D8 GT is basically a worse version of the D8 270 RS in every way, shape, and form. The only reason why I think that this is the same RQ is because it has better MRA. But better MRA in this case means 75. 75 MRA is not going to get you anywhere, bro. You think you're a drag car? No! Even if you have that low 0 to 60, 75 MRA isn't good enough. When you think about it, all these Dodges are in the 90s, okay? And of course, we just talked about the Spiker, which is in the hundreds. So yeah, this car is kind of like good for nothing. It's not the worst, but then again, compared to its compatriots in RQ75, D8 GT, pretty underwhelming. Joining that donkey D8 is going to be the Bentley Flying Spur. This one is pretty obvious, just like all the other Bentleys. High top speed, doesn't handle, very heavy, no MRA, blah blah blah. You get it, you get the point. And the last one that is on the bottom list of RQ75 is going to go to the Jaguar Project 7. Why I've chosen the Jaguar Project 7 is because unfortunately it's a worse version in every way to the Spiker C8. They're both convertibles, but the Jaguar has, you know, worse top speed, the same 0 to 60, but worse MRA. So unfortunately, the F-Type Project 7, you're out, buddy. Alright, so let's move on to RQ76. So my top 3 RQ76, the first one is going to go to a no-brainer. It is the M3CS, one of the best epic saloons in the entire game. 98 handling, decent MRA, I think around 84, low 0 to 60, high top speed, very respectable saloon. I use it all the time, and when it comes to saloon events, when there's no rain or city streets medium, the M3CS is actually a Mitsubishi Lancer killer. So we've talked about in this series how the Lancer beats everything in the city streets. Well, the Lancers are also fantastic on the twisties, but if the M3CS was in the equation, this one would take the names and the wins all the time. Joining the M3CS in my top 3 for RQ76 is going to go to the Donkavort D8 270. Once again, it's just a slightly better version of the RS, which was in my top 3 for RQ75. This thing just, well, handles a little better. 0 to 60 is the same, top speed is the same, MRA is just about the same. The only reason why this is slightly better is because it handles a little better. That's about it. And then last but not least is the KTM Expo R, because of the amazing handling that it has and the lightweight that it brings to the table. The 0 to 60 isn't as strong as the Donkavorts. That being said though, the handling on these, no question, are fantastic. Alright, so let's talk about my bottom 3 RQ76s. Now this one was pretty easy and you're gonna see why. So the first 2 are Audis. The first one is the Audi RS3. The Audi RS3, I mean, I'm gonna put it this way, it's only useful in one niche event, and that is SUV events, like SUV times 5, and all the track sets have to be dry. Yeah. How many times do you see dry times 5, SUV times 5 events? This is something that you don't even see in clubs. So the Audi RSQ3, unfortunately, I mean, it just never has a day to shine. I thought that one day it was going to have its day to shine. I think it was the Zonda Revolution finals, but even then it was all off-road and the Audi RSQ3 was just incredibly useless. Joining it is the Audi RS4. It's basically a worse Lancer, but not only a worse Lancer, it is the worst version of the Volvo V60 T8. If you don't know what the V60 T8 is, it's this one right here. They're both RQ76, they're both medium ground clearance, they're both 4-wheel drive, and they're both estates. And the V60 is going to be the Audi on most of the track sets, if not all. So because of that, because you can't even beat a car in any track set in your own field, unfortunately the Audi RS4 is going to be in the bottom of the RQ76 list. And last but not least is going to be the Diablo VT Roadster. The Diablo VT Roadster, I mean, the 4-wheel drive here is just oversaturating this car. It's just not oversaturating, it's overhyping the car, okay? It doesn't deserve to be RQ76. 82 handling and 4.30 to 60. I know ultra rares that have better handling and 0 to 60 than the Diablo VT Roadster. So why do you think this is RQ76? Not only just 4-wheel drive, right? Not just the drivetrain, right? Well, it has a high top speed of 201 top speed, and it has an MRA of 93. But 93 MRA is not enough to compensate for that yee 0 to 60 and handling. 93, I mean, come on, bro. 93 MRA are rookie numbers. This thing is 98. This thing is like 95. And we just talked about other cars which are lower RQ that are capable of hitting 99 and 100. And both the CLK GTM and the Spiker and even the Project 7 has a lower 0 to 60 than the Diablo VT Roadster. This thing is hot garbage. There you go. I said it. It took me that long, but I finally said hot garbage. All right, let's move on to RQ77. RQ77 has a lot of gems. The first one I'm going to give it to is the Bentayga Diesel. This thing gives me nightmares. Whenever there's a diesel event, there are literally only two cars that, rule every diesel off-road event. It's this and the SQ5. If you have this and the SQ5, you're set for life. Congratulations. That's at least top 10. If you have 3 other cars that can back those 2 cars up, then it's probably going to be tier 1. The Bentayga Diesel is incredible. It's a legendary killer. It's a legendary Bentayga killer. This is like the younger sister that is better than all her siblings. It doesn't matter that she's younger. She's the one with the PhD, and you're the one working at McDonald's. This thing is ridiculous. It has 83 MRA, it's 78 MRA. It hits about 83 handling. It is pretty good for an SUV, and it has a low 0 to 60 and a high top speed. The Bentayga Diesel is a car to be feared. I remember that this was given out as a tier 2 epic in a tri-series long ago, but I got tier 1 in that final, so I never got the Bentayga Diesel. God damn it. But yes, joining the Bentayga in my top 3 for RQ77 is going to be the Mustang GT4. This thing brings KTM handling. It is the highest handling epic in the game. It is absolutely ridiculous. The Ford Mustang GT4, low 0 to 60, high top speed. The MRA isn't the best thing in the world, but it's still a great twisty car. It's not a super twisty car though. This is not a car that you want to put on the slalom or the mountain slalom, but this is a car that you definitely want to put on twisty road, twisty circuit, hairpin road, G-force. Yes, this is your car. Absolutely fantastic. I mean, honestly, Hutch was really lenient giving this 77. I feel like this could be 78 or 79. In fact, it beats the Mustang FR500, which is 79 RQ, on half of the tracks as all the twistier ones. So really, there's enough incentive here for the GT4 to actually be an RQ79 car. Fantastic beast. Finally, joining the Ford Mustang and the Bentayga, still gives me nightmares, that car, is going to be the Dodge Viper GTSR concept. This thing blends the positives perfectly, okay? It has 91 MRA, it has incredibly high top speed of 200, a low 0 to 60 sub 4 seconds stock, and it has 88 handling. This is kind of like my go-to performance tire RQ77, right? Because it has better MRA than the Corvette, they share the same 0 to 60, and it handles a little better, and then so it takes those pluses, right? But then when you want to compare the GTSR, and trust me, I put a lot of thought into this because I knew a lot of people are going to be like, well, Blossom, there's the Evora 400 or the Zonda C12. Although both of these cars have better MRA, they're still both in the same window, as in they're both in the 90s, right? Actually, the Evora is 100, but they're both, kind of in the 90s to 100. This one's 98, this one's 91, and there's a 0.2 second difference in their 0 to 60. Not to mention, as I find 77 again, the Viper GTSR has the highest top speed by quite some margin. It's not like this is 195 and 196. No, this is 200 to 185 and 186. So personally, in my opinion, considering that I do own all 3 of them, my pick is the Dodge Viper GTSR concept, as the super sensitive scroll has brought me back down to 76. Anyway, now let's talk about my bottom 77. So the worst of the worst RQ77s. The first one is going to go to the Roof RK Coupe. Now, the Roof RK Coupe is kind of like the loner, right? You have the cool gang, the cool boy club, which consists of the C12 and the Evora and the GTSR and the Lingenfelter, and then you have the sad guy in the corner, the weirdo, and that's the Roof RK Coupe. The Roof RK Coupe is pretty irrelevant. It handles the worst. The MRA is decent, but it's not as good as the C12 or the Evora, and the top speed isn't very high either, not as high as the Viper GTSR. So unfortunately, the Roof RK Coupe, you're kind of out there. You can't handle, you can't walk the walk, literally. And then next on the list is going to be the Mercedes McLaren Roadster. Once again, the handling just isn't as good enough to hang out with the big boys. And not only that, it has worse MRA than the Viper GTSR, and I think it has about the same MRA as the Corvette Lingenfelter. Let me check my notes. 87. So it has about the same MRA as the Corvette Lingenfelter. So the Corvette is 3887, 200, that's 206, 36, 86. The handling is the part that really brings it down, because when it comes to the twisties, you're gonna rather use the Evora, the Zonda, or the the GTSR, because they handle better. And if it comes to a car where you want to use just for that sheer MRA, for that sheer, like, I guess, test bowl ish, you're probably gonna want to use the Viper GTSR as well. So the last but not least to add to the Roof and the Mercedes McLaren in the bottom of RQ77 is going to be the Dodge Durango SRT. This hurts me, man, because I really like this car, but the Dodge Durango SRT, no denying, it's kind of like the epic version of the Bentley Walter Owen edition. Why I say that is because the Durango SRT looks like it has really good base stats, and it does, but it's just a car that underperforms. You gotta max this thing out for it to actually get some value. I mean, the saddest thing about this is if you max this epic, it will beat the Trailblazer SS that everybody gets from the campaign by about 50. I mean, it's a really big investment for a very small win, if you ask me, against a car that everybody has. And that really is what the Dodge Durango SRT is known for. It's known for the drags. It's a Dodge, for crying out loud. And the 0 to 60, I mean, it's low, but unfortunately it has no MRA. It has an MRA of like 1. So unfortunately, the Dodge Durango SRT is going to wrap up my list for the bottom of RQ77. Anyway, moving on, let's go to 78. 78, a lot of bangers, kind of like 75, so let's talk about it. The first one is going to be the Charger SRT Hellcat. That is going to start off the top 3 of my RQ78 list. 204 top speed, the 3.4 to the 60, 84 handling, and MRA of 92, I believe. This thing is the top dog. We talked about amazing dragsters, but nothing really beats the Charger SRT Hellcat. This is the daddy dragster right here. It just blends everything perfectly about drag positives. Good MRA, low 0 to 60, high top speed. This thing has it all. Not only that though, it is a saloon, for crying out loud. You can use this thing in the saloon events, in the 5-seater events. Almost every dragster that we talked about in this video that is amazing isn't a saloon, for crying out loud. I mean, the CLK DTM's a convertible, the Spiker's a convertible, even the Project 7, I don't know why I keep thinking about it, but that's a convertible. And then I think the C12 and the Evora 400, those are coupes. So this thing really is not only fantastic, but it's in a category of its own half the time. So the Charger SRT Hellcat, one of the best epics in the game, no bias. Next on the list is going to be the Audi SQ5. Yes, I mean, this and the Bentley Bentayga, you see these two in a diesel event and you want to run away, especially if it's off-road. Fantastic thing, this. It handles incredibly well, one of the best handling SUVs, all surface tires in the game. And last but not least, to wrap up RQ78, I'm going to give it to the Dodge Viper SRT10. Why? Is because well, I actually wrote down, it's the King performance car. It has, it's just basically a better version of the Lamborghini Gallardo LP550. It has better MRA to the Lamborghini Gallardo and a better top speed, and they share the same 0 to 60 and the same handling. And if we compare it to the AMG SLS Roadster, not only does the Dodge have a better top speed, but it handles better. So the Dodge is going to beat the SLS Roadster in anything in the twisties, as well as the Lamborghini Gallardo. And although the SLS Roadster has better MRA, it's only by 2,
because this is 92 MRA, this is 90 MRA. The Viper SRT10 is my most wanted American frontier car, and that's why I think that this is probably going to be the next wide body for me. But now let's talk about the bottom RQ78s. And I have to say, just because I chose the SRT8, that doesn't mean that the SLS Roadster and the Lamborghini Gallardo are bad. Both of them are fantastic, and the reason why the Viper is capable of beating both of it just adds to the positiveness, adds to the cult, not the cult, the cult, the clout to the Dodge Viper SRT10. But now let's talk about my bottom RQ78. So the first one is going to go to the Audi TT RS. This thing is a bit of a disappointment. It doesn't handle, low ground clearance, so it's not a medium, four-wheel drive, 4.10 to 60. It's unfortunate. And alongside with the Audi TT RS is going to be the Bentley GT V8 Roadster. I mean, both of them are kind of hand in hand, you know? They both can't handle, they're both low, they're both four-wheel drive. The Bentley is a lot heavier, and although it has a lower 0 to 60 and a higher top speed, it's a Bentley! You got no MRA, bro. You can't hit 192. You can't hit close to 192 anyway. And last but not least, rounding out RQ78 is going to be the Audi RS5. Now, the Audi RS5, I'm putting it on the shit list on a technicality, okay? Because, yes, it's the only car in its niche for RQ78. There's no other four-wheel drive, medium ground clearance, cabriolet, or convertible in the RQ78 range. But the main reason why I'm putting it in the bottom list for RQ78 is because I don't think it deserves to be RQ78. Think about it this way. Set the scene. You have a city streets medium and it's dry and you need to use a four-wheel drive. So you're gonna use the Audi RS5, but then you find out that for 1 RQ more, you're going to get a car that has 3 more handling, and a 0 to 60 difference of almost half a second. You're telling me that if a car has almost half a second worse, 0 to 60, and 3 less handling, it only gets deducted by 1 RQ? What I mean here, what I'm trying to say is that the Audi RS5 doesn't deserve to be 78. Yes, it's the best car in its niche for RQ78 because it's the only one, but it just doesn't deserve to be 78. If this car was a 76 or 75, then it would be pretty good. But 78, that's just way too much. Now, let's move on to RQ79. So my top 3 RQ79s, we're going to start off with what I like to call is the Daddy Evo. This is the Evo of the Evos. The Evo that rules all Evos. That isn't a prize car, at least, because there is another Evo that's better. The 0 to 60 is low, the handling is high, and nothing gets close to it. Well, actually, yes, this does get quite close to it, but it doesn't beat the Evo 10 in anything, really. So the Mitsubishi Lancer Evo 10 is the first one on my list. Now, the next one, we're going to stay in Japan, is going to be the Mazda Furai. The Mazda Furai is the thing of beauty, isn't it? 3.5, 0 to 60, 92 handling. Also, it is a lightweight car weighing under 700 kgs, and it has a high top speed, but we don't need to talk about that because it has an MRA that will never hit 180 or anywhere close to 180. That being said, though, you know, lightweight, great twisty car, good car even for the quarter mile because of that low 0 to 60 and the hairpin, decent on the fast circuit. The Mazda Furai is a thing of beauty. And the last one is going to be the Ford Mustang FR500 GT. This thing is fantastic. I mean, here are the notes I have for the FR500. It's just the best all-rounder. It has 90 MRA, low 0 to 60, not the lowest, but it's relatively low, and it has really good handling. So, you know, it handles better than the CC100. It has better MRA than the Corvette Z06, and unfortunately, I really wanted to give the Z06 the final spot in RQ79, but after I looked at some times on Top Drives World's Instagram, when it comes to the twisty track sets, the FR500 is going to beat the Z06 everywhere, and also in the fast. I mean, yes, the Z06 has better 0 to 60, but this has significantly better MRA in the 90s, so the Ford Mustang FR500 is just absolutely fantastic. And at the end of the day, this is really, even though it has a low 0 to 60, the Z06 is a car that you're going to use on the twisties more than the fast because they're just better options on the fast, namely the CC100 or the Dodge Charger that we talked about before. Now let's talk about my bottom RQ79s, the worst of the worst. The first one is going to be the Mercedes-AMG A45. Why is this RQ49? It shouldn't be. It's almost illegal. Let me put it this way. 4085, 155, four-wheel drive, and when it had medium ground clearance, when it was medium, it was RQ75. Hodge changed this car to low, but they kept it at 79. There are other cars you see as epics or as ultra rares where if a car goes from medium to low, Hutch usually cuts about 4 or 5 RQ, and that's what they should have done to the A45. This doesn't deserve to be RQ79. This should be 75, RQ74. The stats in this thing is ridiculous. I mean, it has about the same stats as like an RQ69 almost. I mean, remember when we were talking about how most RQ69s were like 4.185, 4.185? That's 4.075, no MRA, no top speed. Although it has four-wheel drive, you're not going to use a low ground clearance four-wheel drive car very often in the game. Unfortunately, the AMG A45 doesn't deserve to be 79. Joining this car on the list is going to be the BMW 760 Li. Now, the BMW 760 Li, I mean, it only has 70 MRA. So, although the 0 to 60 is low, it only has 70 MRA, and top speed isn't very high, and the handling sucks, bro. Not gonna lie, I'd rather use the Peugeot 907 over the M760 Li. And last but not least, it's the Mercedes-AMG ML63. Why? It's because it's just a worse version of the Bentayga and the SQ5. So I don't know why the SQ5 is 78 and the Bentayga is 77, but the AMG ML63 is 79. Just doesn't really make a lot of sense to me, honestly. All right, so last but not least are the cars that are above RQ79. So there are only 5 epics above 79 that aren't prize cars, and that's the Banana, the Superlight, and the 3 Audi. So instead of giving you a top 3 best and top 3 worst, because I can't really do that, I'm just gonna give you how I rank them from first to last. So the best, Superlight, number 1, first place. Second place, Banana. Third place, RS6. Fourth place, S8 Plus. And the worst one, the worst epics out of the RQ79 Plus is the RS7 Sportback. And with that concludes the epics of the top 3 best and the top 3 worst. Next up is gonna be legendaries, and at that point, I mean, guys, that's just gonna be a fun time. I mean, I own 100 legendaries, which is not even 50% of all the legendaries in the game, so I'm nowhere near certified to tell you what are the best and worst legendaries, but I'm gonna take a gander at it anyway. That's gonna be a less, I guess, I mean, it's still gonna be an informative video. I still have a lot to say, but it's going to be, I guess, less reliable than all the other videos I've done before, but it's gonna be a good time, and we're gonna see good cars. But anyway, I hope you guys have a great day. Remember to stay safe, wash your hands, and blossom out. Peace.